Millionaire's fiancé faces a shocking choice. Discover her unexpected and inspiring decision. As Sarah Thompson glanced around the lavish Hayes mansion, the whispers of socialites buzzed in her ears. Look at her. Just a nurse from Lubbock. Each phrase dug deeper than the last, twisting into knots of doubt that curled in her stomach. They were right, she thought. She was just Sarah, a tenacious nurse desperately trying to make her mark in a world that seemed determined to define her by her humble beginnings. Yet, here she was, dazzling diamond ring on her finger, poised on the precipice of a life that felt eerily disconnected from who she was. Carter's world was bright with glamour, charity balls, and extravagant galas, a stark contrast to her existence filled with night shifts, band-aids, and patients who needed her care. The community healthcare clinic she'd dreamed of felt more distant with each passing moment, especially now that the financial burdens of her family's struggling farm loomed like a thundercloud over her head. How was she to navigate the dual pressures of wedding planning and a crumbling legacy back home? The tension mounted as the night's festivities continued. Every laugh from Carter's friends sounded empty, like echoes of a life that felt woven into a fabric that didn't include her. She wrestled with this moral dilemma. If she accepted Carter's help to fund her clinic, would it betray her values of independence and hard work? Or worse, would it tie her to a life built on money instead of merit, which she'd fought so hard against? And then, on top of that, last week's news about Carter's business practices being scrutinized only shook the ground beneath her further. Real doubts crept in. How much did he know? How deeply was this scandal inherent in his character? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Uncertain and feeling stifled, Sarah stepped outside into the cool evening air, hoping for clarity. Starry night skies typically brought comfort, but isolated and anxious, she struggled to breathe through the weight of it all. Faces of her family haunted her thoughts. How could she allow them to lose their legacy? The relentless whispers echoed louder, each one reminding her of what she might sacrifice. Friends suggested leveraging her future with Carter for the clinic, while others implored her to remember her mantra, hard work above all. Standing on the brink of collapse, she felt like a pawn in a game of chess she didn't understand. As the gala continued in behind her, alive with laughter and the sound of clinking glasses, she was engulfed in darkness, questioning the worth of her own desires. Would choosing to stand firmly for her family's honor mean letting go of her happiness with Carter? In that moment, her heart screamed for clarity, caught in turmoil, a battle between love and legacy, dreams and dignity. She was at a cliff's edge, faced with the choice of a lifetime. Would choosing what was right come at the cost of everything she ever wished for? Uncertainty lingered in the air, like an impending storm. The moon painted the world in silvery shades as Sarah wandered the perimeter of the sprawling estate, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm against the weight of her thoughts. The laughter and shimmering lights behind her felt worlds away, an alien existence that seemed tantalizingly out of reach yet deeply unsatisfying. Each step she took became a precarious balancing act on the edge of her identity. Who was she really, beneath the cheers and glitz that felt more like a costume than her day-to-day reality? As she paced, memories of her time spent at the clinic rose uninvited, each one a beacon of purpose illuminating the fog of uncertainty. It was there that Sarah felt the pulse of her true self, where lives were changed not through wealth, but through sheer willpower, compassion, and dedication. The thought of abandoning that vision for a fairy tale existence gnawed at her insides. If she accepted help from Carter, would she be trading her authenticity for a life draped in luxury, but devoid of genuine meaning? Wasn't it those very hands, calloused and toughened from long shifts, that she wanted to use to heal, to nurture, to stand firm against the tide of adversity? Suddenly she felt an unmistakable push, a fire igniting in her chest. What if she could have both? With a renewed sense of determination, she envisioned a life intertwined with Carter, not defined by wealth, but by a shared mission to uplift those who needed her the most. She'd never asked for his money out of greed, but if it meant galvanizing the resources needed to build the clinic of her dreams, could it be such a crime? The idea bloomed, rich and fragrant. What if she challenged the narrative? Instead of succumbing to the whispers that cast her as a mere gold digger, what if she transformed her role into one of empowerment? She could leverage their relationship to raise awareness about the power of healthcare, build a bridge to community support, and create a lasting impact far beyond her. With this vision in mind, Sarah's thoughts shifted to Carter. His earnest smile, the way he lit up when discussing philanthropic endeavors, and his genuine enthusiasm for making a difference. Could she engage him in her fight? Could they be allies, not just partners in love, but partners in purpose? With clarity dawning, she resolved to have that conversation with him. The shadows of doubt and fear still whispered, but they were now joined by a stronger voice, one that demanded action. She felt empowered, no longer just the nurse from Lubbock, but a force to be reckoned with, bridging her two worlds. Taking a deep breath, Sarah turned back toward the mansion, ready to reclaim her narrative. She could no longer be a side character in her own life. This was her story, and she would write it on her own terms. Upon entering the crowded hall, the noise of clinking glasses and animated chatter swirled around her like a whirlwind. There, across the room, she spotted Carter, his attention on a discussion with a local philanthropist. She felt an unmistakable urge to approach him, to share not just her aspirations but also the gravity of her struggles. Yet just as she started to weave through the throng of bodies, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. It was Lucy, a fellow nurse and a close friend, but something in her expression sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Was that fear mingled with concern on her friend's face? Before she could analyze her friend's expression, Lucy rushed forward, urgency in her tone. "Sarah, I need to talk to you now, it's important." An unsettling feeling blossomed in Sarah's gut. What could be so urgent? With her determination wavering momentarily, she steeled herself, ready to confront whatever awaited on the other side of this unsettling conversation. As Lucy led her away, Sarah questioned what revelation could possibly change the course of her night. Was it more about Carter, the clinic, or was her past about to collide with her future? The air thickened with anticipation as they stepped into the hallway. Challenging news loomed just ahead. Lucy's grip on Sarah's arm tightened as she pulled her further away from the din of the party. The moment they entered the dimly lit hallway, the laughter and cheer faded into a dull hum, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed against Sarah's chest. She turned to Lucy, her heart pounding. "What's wrong?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice. The urgency in Lucy's expression felt insurmountable, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. "It's about the clinic," Lucy said, her voice barely a whisper, as if the walls had ears. "I just received a call from the administration. They're cutting funding. If something doesn't change soon, they might have to lay off staff. They may even shut down if they can't secure more resources." Panic surged through Sarah, drowning out the music and merriment behind her. All the plans she had begun to weave, the dreams she had just started to entertain, felt like fragile threads unraveling before her eyes. "Is there anything we can do?" The words felt hollow, devoid of the certainty she longed to assert. Lucy shook her head. "Unless we can generate immediate support or sponsorship, there's nothing we can do. I mean, you'd know. They need someone who can rally support, someone with resources." Sarah felt herself pull inward, the weight of the world pressing against her like a physical force. She had resolved to harness her narrative, to turn her relationship with Carter into a vehicle for change. Yet here it was, as if the universe was challenging her resolve. "Lucy, Sarah inhaled deeply, trying to grasp the shifting ground beneath her. "I need to speak to Carter about this. He has connections. He can help." But Lucy's gaze held something else. Doubt, maybe? Or concern. "You're sure about this? About him? You know, he tends to keep his charitable contributions low profile. What if it turns out he cares more about his image than the mission?" The words curled around Sarah like a heavy fog, insinuating themselves deeper into her thoughts. Was she about to pit her future, her dreams, against the uncertainties of a man whose motives she could hardly decipher. She had felt so convinced moments ago, even empowered. Now, she felt herself teetering on the edge again. "I have to try," Sarah stated quietly, her voice firm. "If he really cares about making a difference, he wouldn't hesitate to invest in something that matters. That's what I'm counting on." For a moment, uncertainty flashed in Lucy's eyes before she nodded. "Just be careful. This could get complicated. You might be more than just his girlfriend. You might be a part of the public eye now." With those words, the apprehension washed over Sarah once more. The complexities of love and ambition collided starkly, pushing her to confront the reality that emerged from the shadows. "I can't afford to be naive," she murmured, grounding her thoughts. "But I also can't afford to stand by and watch the clinic crumble." The new urgency ignited a fire within her. She couldn't remain passive. This challenge demanded action, demanded clarity and strength. It was time to face the intersection of her past and her future. As they stepped back into the living space, the laughter grew louder, almost mocking in its carefree abandon. Sarah's heart raced, but she felt that fire shift from fear to determination. She sought out Carter, ready to delve into the depths of their potential partnership. But as she scanned the room, a flicker of doubt slithered into her mind. Would he put community before his reputation? Just then, the party's music crescendoed, drowning out her spiraling thoughts. The moment had arrived, not just to confront Carter, but to clearly define her own values and aspirations. With a deep breath, she steeled herself, moving through the crowd toward him. She could do this. She had to do this. Her heart sank as she caught a glimpse of Carter, deep in conversation with another guest, laughter dancing on his lips, completely unaware of the weight on her heart. A shadow of unease settled in her, an omen that the conversation destined to unfold would not just be a mere exchange of ideas. It would reveal the true fabric of their connection. Could she trust him to see beyond the surface? Could he be the ally she needed? Or would he simply turn a blind eye? The stakes were as high as ever, and her next steps would determine which path she would walk down. The future was waiting, but would Sarah have the courage to embrace it, whatever it held? As Sarah approached Carter, her pulse quickened, each beat echoing the uncertainty swirling within her. The laughter that filled the room only heightened her resolve, amplifying the stakes of her impending conversation. She had lived in shadows long enough, hesitating at the intersection of love and ambition. But this, a chance to influence something greater than herself, kindled a new determination within her. Carter's back was turned, engrossed in conversation. From this angle, he looked every bit the charismatic businessman everyone admired. The veneer of confidence seemed all-consuming, a mask often worn by those who thrived in social circles built on appearances. Sarah paused, wrestling with the wavering confidence that questioned whether he might indeed be more invested in his image than in the cause she felt so passionately about. Stepping closer, she attempted to listen discreetly, hoping to glean any hint of his true intentions. It seemed light and humorous on the surface, but as she caught snippets of the conversation, a recurrent theme emerged: connections, exclusivity, and appearances. Each word resonated inside her like an echo of her own insecurities. Would Carter prioritize prestige over purpose? "Sarah!" His voice sliced through her reverie. He finally acknowledged her arrival, his face brightening with genuine warmth. "I didn't see you come in. How are you?" The question hung in the air, innocuous yet heavy with expectation. For her to engage in anything less than sincere would feel like betrayal not only to herself, but to the very mission she now envisioned for the clinic. "I'm good," she replied, forcing a smile while thoughts of the clinic's fate weighed heavily on her tongue. "Actually, I need to talk to you about something serious." "Sure, what's on your mind?" He motioned towards a quieter corner, eager to lend her his ear, but the space felt almost claustrophobic. As they stepped aside, the laughter faded slightly, giving way to a more somber atmosphere. "Lucy just told me that the clinic is facing drastic funding cuts," she began, bringing forth the grim situation with calculated urgency. "They're on the brink of collapsing if they can't secure support. The words tasted bitter, mingling desperation with determination. "I think you could help." Carter's expression shifted, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "How do you expect I can assist? You know I keep my philanthropic pursuits low-key." "Because you're connected," she insisted, her voice steadying. "If you could leverage those connections for the clinic's benefit, it could be the difference between survival and closure." He frowned, a hint of defensiveness surfacing. "But I'm not looking to put my name out there every chance I get, Sarah. You know how it is." "What I know," she interrupted, feeling an unfamiliar surge of assertiveness, "is that we're at a pivotal moment. If we don't act now, the clinic becomes just another statistic. Do you care enough to challenge your boundaries and join me in this?" The challenge tasted potent, electrifying the air between them. She held her breath, waiting for his response. Would his desire for reputation blind him to a righteous cause? "You know I respect you," he began carefully, his demeanor shifting slightly. "But you're asking for something that could potentially complicate my public image." Her heart sank at his words, a reminder of the avarice lurking behind his polished exterior. "Then perhaps it's time to re-evaluate what truly matters to you." Silence stretched as Sarah took a step back, questioning her own position. Could she burn her bridges for something she believed in, even if it meant risking this relationship? The reality loomed. This confrontation wasn't merely about the clinic, it was a reflection of her own values. A flicker of recognition danced in Carter's eyes, and for that split second, she sensed a change, a realization dawning in his mind. He was weighing something significant, and any moment could sway his decision. But the choice before him was imminent, and Sarah found herself at the precipice of both anger and hope. Would he stand alongside her, or continue to prioritize his image? As his lips parted to speak, the air charged with anticipation. Sarah's heart raced with the uncertainty of his answer. Could she navigate this delicate balance of personal ambition and ethical commitment? Whatever his response, one truth remained clear. This moment would redefine her path. "Are you ready to take a leap for what matters?" she challenged, voice unwavering. Yet the ground beneath her felt fragile, alive with potential, still uncharted. The tension hung palpably, and Sarah realized that her journey, one laden with uncertainty and revelations, had just begun. The silence broke like a fragile glass, and the noise of the party faded into the background. Sarah's gaze darted between Carter's expectant eyes and the vibrant chaos of the room, highlighting the stark contrast between their conversation and the lightheartedness around them. She felt acutely aware of her surroundings. Laughter sounded distant, and in that moment, nothing else mattered but the choice Carter was about to make. As he opened his mouth to respond, time seemed to stretch. Sarah steadied her nerve, drawing upon every ounce of determination she'd conjured in her heart. This was not merely a plea. It was a moment of reckoning where ambition and ethical grounding coalesced into an urgent push for action. She could feel the weight of her desire to effect change coursing through her veins, battling the self-doubt that had followed her for so long. "Sarah," he began, clearly considering his words, "you know how this business works." His voice trailed off, and she could see it in his eyes, his internal struggle, the pull between his instincts for self-preservation and a burgeoning sense of responsibility. He was standing at the crossroads, and she realized that she wasn't the only one facing a personal crossroads. "Sometimes," she interrupted, her voice firm, "it's worth stepping out from behind your carefully curated image. It might be uncomfortable." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "But authentically connecting with what matters can shift everything. You could save lives. And that's a legacy that no amount of prestige can replace." In that moment, she wasn't just an employee trying to save a clinic, she was compelling Carter to confront his own legacy. The thought swirled through her mind, a chance not only to resurface the clinic, but also for Carter to reclaim parts of himself he had buried behind boardrooms and deals. His responses felt like a double-edged sword. He was torn between confronting the risk of tarnishing his reputation and the allure of doing something profoundly meaningful. She sensed doubt flickering across his face, but it gave way to a defense that threatened to push her back into uncertainty. "Reputation is everything in this life," he said, his tone firm. yet a tremor revealed his uncertainty. And if I put my name on something, what happens afterward? What risk does it bring? Some risks are worth taking, she replied, allowing the intensity of her determination to seep into her tone. The question you must ask is, do you value appearances more than impact? Is the face you show to the world more important than the lives that depend on genuine help? Silence enveloped them once more as Sarah's words sank in. She could almost see the cogs turning in his mind, weighed down by the gravity of her challenge. For her, this wasn't just about the clinic. It was about integrity, both his and hers, being tested in real time. As she prepared to push further, to conversate about fundraising strategies or persuasive narratives that could bridge the gap between their visions, a familiar pang stabbed through her. What if he ultimately retreated, strengthened by prior convictions? The fear of losing both the clinic's future and what she hoped could grow into a deeper relationship with him threatened to suffocate her. Finally, Carter exhaled slowly, the tension shifting. I can't ignore the implications, he confessed, vulnerability slipping through his polished facade. Decisions like this don't simply go away. They linger. And you have a choice, she said firmly, closing the distance that once felt insurmountable. A chance to embrace something beyond what you see in the mirror, something genuine. People are suffering, Carter, and you can be part of the solution. His nostrils flared and she sensed the oscillation within him, the clash of duty and morality, ambition and compassion. Each second that passed felt like an eternity, but within that pregnant pause, something crackled in the air. Sarah, he murmured, his voice low as if revealing raw, unguarded thoughts. You might be right. But to truly embrace that, I need to know just how far you're willing to go too. Her heart raced as a new realization washed over her. His question wasn't just a challenge linked to the clinic. It was about their connection, and how far they were both willing to stretch their limits in the pursuit of meaningful impact. As the laughter and chatter of the party resumed its place around them, Sarah felt herself teetering precariously on a path where professional ambition and personal bonding collided. It was now or never. Would they redefine their destinies together? Then let's define the terms, she said, injecting the strength of her resolve into every syllable. Let's work together to create something that matters. But first, we need to break free from our fears. His eyes widened, mirroring the dawning understanding of the shared crossroads they stood at, the future of the clinic stretching before them like an uncharted wilderness. And in that instant, both their paths began to intertwine, one ambition anchored in purpose, the other tinged with possible revelations about themselves that could alter their lives irrevocably. Would Carter take that leap, committing himself to a cause that challenged both his principles and his pride? As the walls began closing in, Sarah braced herself for whatever revelation would emerge from the decision that lay ahead. A revelation she hoped would cast a new light on her journey, intertwining it with Carter's once and for all. With uncertainty swirling around them like shadows, one question loomed. Were they ready to face what lay beyond the veil of willing commitment together? The air around them vibrated with intensity, a palpable energy created by unspoken possibilities. Sarah felt her heart thrum in tandem with her determination. This was a moment she had envisioned countless times, yet it felt infinitely more profound than she had anticipated. The shadows of fear that had darkened her professional landscape now intermingled with the light of hope, creating a dazzling mixture that left her momentarily breathless. Carter studied her, his expression shifting as though he were dissecting her conviction. "What does this look like for you?" he finally asked, his voice tinged with genuine curiosity. As if the formalities of the party had somehow faded away, leaving behind only the weight of this pivotal conversation. "First, we must assess our resources and the community's needs. We need an honest evaluation of what the clinic's goals should be. With clear objectives, we can create an effective strategy," she replied, her mind racing with the implications. For the first time, she felt a surge of clarity that drove her to articulate a full vision. "And," she continued, locking eyes with him, "we should be prepared for the backlash. People will question our motives, scrutinize our choices. We need to be ready for that, emotionally and strategically." "Emotionally," Carter echoed, a hint of skepticism flickering in his eyes. This is business, Sarah. It's not a game. Exactly. And that's why it matters even more, she shot back, passion igniting her words. If we fail to engage from a place of purpose, we'll risk becoming just another thread in a system that doesn't care. It's essential for me that if we step into this, we acknowledge our feelings, our motivations, everything that drives us. Carter smiled slightly, a blend of admiration and uncertainty. This is a lot to take in. For someone who started with little confidence in this industry, you seem immensely prepared. His compliment ignited a spark of warmth in her chest, but it was suffocated quickly under the enormity of her goal. She didn't have the luxury of basking in praise. Time was slipping away, and she needed to keep the momentum surging forward. I'm prepared because I understand the stakes, Carter. This is more than just a project. I'm fighting for lives. She watched as his brow furrowed, revealing the complexity of his thoughts. Silence danced between them, thick with the potential for both failure and possibility. Carter broke the stillness, his voice solemn. And what if we don't succeed? The question struck deep, a potential disaster looming beyond the horizon. Sarah realized that his unease mirrored her own. Each deep-seated fear they harbored threatened to rip apart the fragile bond of trust they were constructing together. It was time for transparency. If we don't succeed, we learn, she said carefully, weighing each word. We become stronger advocates. It means we reevaluate, regroup, and try again. We owe it to those who depend on us to not quit just because the path ahead looks daunting. His gaze shifted as if contemplating her every word. Abruptly, a sense of urgency surged within her. She couldn't afford to back down. The future of the clinic depended on both of them, and now she understood how interwoven their destinies were becoming. As she spoke, a vivid realization struck. It was more than just agency over the clinic's future. It was recognizing a shared courage that they were both cultivating. There will always be setbacks, Carter. It's how we respond that defines us. He drew a breath, the weight of her words settling around them. Then let's build a plan, not just for the clinic but for ourselves. If we're going to do this, we need to shed the facades that have held us back. I must become the person I've buried in a chase for success, he admitted, the admission revealing a burgeoning desire deep within him. Then let's start immediately, Sarah insisted, emboldened by his newfound vulnerability. Let's break through that facade together. I want us to build something real, something that transcends our pasts. But as they began to solidify their agreement, a shadow flitted across the room, drawing her attention. A group of influential industry leaders loomed nearby, engaged in spirited discussion, their eyes occasionally landing on Sarah and Carter. She felt a chill race down her spine, a reminder of the pressures that would soon mount. They were staring at something unfolding beyond mere business. They would see them as idealistic dreamers or worse, naive. Wouldn't this change their perception? Sarah knew their stance on authenticity would be a double-edged sword, either delivering them to a higher purpose or exposing them to criticism. What lay ahead now loomed larger than they had anticipated. As the weight of the world slipped back into the equation, Sarah turned back to Carter. We can't let their judgment sidetrack us. We need to stand firm in our vision. He nodded, resolve solidifying in his features, but tension lingered in the air. The stakes had become clear, and as they delved deeper into a partnership, both had to confront the glaring question of how to move beyond the gaze of those waiting for them to fail. Are you ready to face the scrutiny, Sarah? Carter asked, his voice low yet urgent. Because it's going to challenge everything we believed about ourselves. Her response was instant, rooted in a firm belief she had unearthed during their tenuous conversations. Only if we face it together. And as they stood side by side, the noise of the party washed over them once more, the possibilities stretching out like an unending horizon. Would they navigate the judgment that lay in wait as they embarked on this new adventure? The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges that could redefine not only their professional paths, but also the very essence of who they were as individuals. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, planning sessions, and brainstorming that left Sarah both exhilarated and drained. Each moment spent with Carter reinforced her growing conviction, but also heightened the anxiety swelling within her. If they were truly going to reshape the clinic, they had to address deeper issues, both within the practice itself and within themselves. Each morning Sarah awoke with the lingering thought of the looming judgment. She was constantly confronted by the uncertainty of how their vision would be perceived by the very community they sought to serve. Whispers echoed in her mind about the risk of being dismissed as elitist or disconnected from reality. Determined not to let fear dominate her thoughts, she frequently revisited their initial discussions, drawing strength from the shared commitment they had forged. Over a week into their partnership, an important meeting was scheduled with key stakeholders from the clinic and influential figures in the health sector. It was crucial for them to present a united front. In her preparation, Sarah felt the familiar flutter of self-doubt, a sensation she had been wrestling with since the outset. Despite the progress she had made, there remained an unsettling fear of failure. In the meeting room, the atmosphere was tense. A panel of seasoned professionals, seasoned yet skeptical, loomed over them like the weight of impending judgment. Carter sat beside her, his posture confident, yet she could sense his own unease bubbling beneath the surface. As they presented their vision, an emphasis on compassion-driven care and a call to acknowledge emotional well-being, she could feel the scrutiny intensifying. Questions cascaded. How will you fund these initiatives? What makes you think your approach will work? Each inquiry was a reminder of the stakes. This was not merely a business discussion, it was a critical assessment of the beliefs they were trying to champion. Carter handled the financial zingers with ease, deftly compartmentalizing the numbers and logistical concerns. Sarah, on the other hand, felt compelled to defend their core principles. She leaned into her emotional intelligence, highlighting the profound connection between health outcomes and psychological well-being, a juxtaposition that pulled at the heartstrings. But even as she spoke, a shadow loomed, the question of why they were doing this. Was it noble ambition, or an unwise crusade born out of personal desires? The nuances of their motivations hung heavy in the room, waiting for exposure. When one of the panelists, an esteemed elder with intense blue eyes, questioned her sincerity, Sarah's stomach dropped. People can sense authenticity, Ms. James. Have you done the introspection needed to ensure your motives are pure? His words, although cloaked in professionalism, struck at her like a personal blow. A familiar surge of defensiveness bubbled up within her, but she quickly quelled it. Instead, she gathered her thoughts, determined to confront the underlying challenge of self-doubt. I understand the skepticism and honestly, I invite it, she began, feeling empowered as she spoke. I'm not here just to recite a mission statement. I'm here because I've watched lives change through care that includes emotional support. This isn't just business for me. It's personal. I lost someone dear to me because we failed to address their psychological needs alongside their physical ones. And that's exactly why I'm passionate about making a difference. Silence hung briefly before the room shifted. Understanding sparked in the eyes of some, while others remained skeptical, crossing their arms. Sarah took a breath, scanning the panel, feeling slightly emboldened. Maybe it was this vulnerability that would allow her to truly break free of her past, the fear-driven Sarah who hesitated in the shadows of others. The meeting wrapped up without a definitive resolution, but as they stepped out, a charged energy hung in the air. They had shown pieces of themselves, voluntarily peeling back layers of professional polish that obscured genuine intent. However, beneath the exhilaration was a shadow of doubt. Had they truly made an impact, or merely stood on the precipice of a greater divide? As they walked down the corridor, Sarah turned to Carter. Do you think we reached them? Her hope flickered in sync with her uncertainty. I think we started a conversation, he replied, yet his own worry echoed in the weight of his words. Then we must continue, she affirmed, something deep within her crystallizing. This was only the beginning, a prelude to the deeper struggles ahead. Transforming the clinic would demand more than just discourse. It would require raw perseverance and unwavering commitment, not just to the mission but to themselves. The questions loomed large in her mind. How far would they be willing to push against scrutiny? Was she truly ready to confront her own fears and insecurities, as they unraveled deeper truths about their ambitions. Suddenly, as they reached the exit, her phone buzzed, a message that jolted her sense of stability. The anxious knot in her stomach tightened. An urgent note from the board circulated among influential stakeholders, expressing doubt about their efforts. A wave of panic washed over her. "Carter, I think we need more than just conviction now," she said, forcing her voice steady. "We need a strategy for when things get even tougher." The next pivotal moment was rapidly approaching, and as she stared into the unknown, uncertainty clawed at her resolve. Would she rise up when challenged, or would doubt consume her? The path ahead was fogged with potential pitfalls, but also the shimmer of uncharted opportunity. It was time for an awakening, a call to self-driven courage that had to emerge if they were to forge ahead. The following morning, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, her reflection a mix of determination and anxiety. The urgency from the board's message still echoed in her mind, compelling her to gain clarity and direction. She couldn't afford hesitation. Not anymore. It was time to turn her fear into fuel. Carter had suggested an immediate strategy meeting. Sarah believed it was essential to focus on actionable steps, preventing their ideas from being mired in doubt. They needed not only a plan for funding, but a robust framework for communicating their vision, the very heart of their initiative. She picked up her notebook, scribbling down ideas, allowing them to flow as she paced her living room. The image of that elder's piercing blue eyes, scrutinizing her sincerity, flickered in her mind. What if she had answered differently? What if she had shared not just the emotional pain of her past, but how it had shaped her resilience? An idea blossomed in Sarah's mind as she jotted it down. She needed to encapsulate their vision in a way that converted skepticism into curiosity. Later that afternoon, she arrived for the strategy meeting, her pulse quickening as she entered the conference room. Uncharacteristically, she decided to take the lead. She began by outlining the agenda, projecting confidence as she explained her concepts for re-engaging the board with their initiative. "Let's focus on 3 core principles: emotional intelligence in practice, community feedback loops, and robust financial modeling," she stated, meeting the gaze of each participant. Carter nodded approvingly, but Sarah sensed that others remained skeptical, waiting for her to falter. As they brainstormed ideas, she witnessed the shift the group was beginning to undergo. More questions turned into genuine curiosities. However, when discussions veered towards limitations again, Sarah recognized a familiar knot tightening in her stomach. "I understand the concerns. However, we don't need to see this as an obstacle. What if we view it as an opportunity for innovative solutions?" The challenge was steep, yet her conviction clung to every word. Carter chimed in, supporting her stance, and gradually there grew a constructive tension among their peers. As they discussed potential collaborations with mental health professionals or providing workshops about the correlation between emotional health and physical wellness, Sarah saw glimmers of inspiration ignite in the room. Reflecting later on her unyielding belief, she recognized an important evolution within herself. She was no longer merely presenting an idea. She was weaving together a narrative, one that could touch hearts and incite change. The thought of dissent no longer paralyzed her. Instead, it motivated her to refine her arguments, anticipating counterpoints and embracing challenges with newfound vigor. After the meeting, she and Carter retreated to a quiet corner of the clinic for the debrief. "You really took charge today," he remarked, admiration glowing in his tone. A rush of warmth spread through Sarah, but a part of her also feared her newfound assertiveness. Was she becoming too driven, too eager to prove herself? "Thanks, but it was a team effort," she replied cautiously. Still, the compliment lingered, prompting her to consider how much she had evolved professionally and personally. She realized they were all looking for a leader, but she had never fully embraced her role before. As days turned into weeks, the reality of their project began to unfold further. Each measurable step they took propelled Sarah's confidence, but lingering doubts returned when faced with moments of resistance. The board's skepticism remained a cloud overhead, unsettling her resolve at times. It was becoming clearer that they would need to confront significant challenges as they progressed. Then, after a particularly grueling week filled with revisions to their proposals, Sarah received an unexpected phone call that changed everything. The voice on the other end belonged to a major influencer in the health sector, someone whose endorsement could either elevate their initiative or lead to its demise. "Ms. James, I've heard whispers of your project, and I want to discuss further. There's a chance for unprecedented support, but you'll need to convince me of your authenticity." Her heart raced as anxiety returned. But this was her chance, the opportunity she had unknowingly craved. A chance to solidify her vision in a way that would transform doubt into belief, while confronting her deepest insecurities. "I'm ready," she asserted, her voice firm yet vulnerable. The moment of truth approached, and Sarah felt the weight of their mission coil around her, both burdensome and exhilarating. Would she rise to this challenge and prove not just to others, but to herself, that her journey had led her to this pivotal moment? As she prepared for the meeting, uncertainty seethed beneath her resolve. Did she truly possess the authenticity necessary to inspire trust? This looming confrontation would answer that question, propelling her further into the depths of her own personal challenge. As Sarah sat in her car, staring at the conference building's imposing structure, her mind raced with the weight of impending expectations. She checked her reflection again, smoothing her hair and reconsidering her outfit. A simple yet professional ensemble. Nothing too flashy, she thought. Authenticity was her new mantra. Entering the building, she clutched her notebook tightly, the pages filled with sketches of ideas and personal anecdotes she planned to share. Each step towards the meeting room felt like traversing an uncertain landscape. What kind of questions would be posed? Would her history suffice in proving her dedication? The waiting room hummed with muted conversations, each voice a reminder of the stakes involved. It wasn't just about funding anymore. It was about her proving she could embody the very vision she aimed to sell. The influencer had positioned herself as a gatekeeper to future support, yet Sarah couldn't shake the instinctual fear that she was an imposter. As she was ushered into the meeting room, she took a moment to absorb the atmosphere. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead, sterile white walls adorned only with corporate artwork. This was a space designed to convey professionalism, but lacked warmth. The round table was populated by smiling yet scrutinizing faces, and in the center, the influencer, a charismatic woman with piercing green eyes, sat with an air of authority. "Ms. James, I've reviewed your proposal. I'm intrigued." Her voice trailed off slightly, amplifying the palpable tension. "Thank you for this opportunity," Sarah began. Her voice steady, but internally she faltered, grappling with self-doubt. She was acutely aware of the need to project confidence even when she felt stripped bare. The conversation unfolded, questions firing back and forth, each inquiry a test of her expertise and her past. The influencer's skepticism simmered beneath her polite demeanor, and it pressed against Sarah's resolve like an encroaching tide. But she had prepared not only the facts about their initiative, but the narratives that had shaped her understanding of emotional wellness. "You've painted a comprehensive picture of community impact," the influencer noted, tilting her head. "However, tell me, what drives you personally to carry this project?" Sarah took a breath, and her mind flickered back to the elder's gaze, who had challenged her sincerity. Raw memories of her struggles resurfaced, and she realized that embracing these vulnerabilities could forge an authentic connection. She spoke of the childhood traumas that had once imprisoned her, her breakthrough moment in therapy, and how each struggle had birthed a passion for advocacy. "I am here not just to sell a project, but because I genuinely believe in the transformative power of recognizing emotional well-being," she confessed, her heart pounding. "This initiative is my way of giving voice to those who feel unheard." In that moment, she could see the wheels turning behind the influencer's penetrating gaze. There was a shift, a small crack in the fog of doubt. Sarah leaned into the energy in the room, pitching the initiative as not just an obligation, but a movement fueled by personal stories, inviting participation and ownership rather than mere financial backing. As the conversation progressed, Sarah noticed her confidence building, bolstered by her own fervor. Each response crafted with intention. She spoke passionately, merging facts with pathos, rekindling her earlier notion of weaving a compelling narrative. After what felt like a lifetime, the conversation drew to a close. The influencer leaned back in her chair, her expression inscrutable. "You're passionate about this, aren't you?" she remarked thoughtfully. I'll need some time to reflect, but I want to see how you and your team can further articulate this convergence of emotional intelligence and business. The weight of her words hung in the air, both a promise and a challenge. Sarah nodded, masking a sudden swell of anxiety. As she walked out of the building, each step felt lighter, not quite triumphant but liberating. She had ventured into the depths of her vulnerability and returned with an experience that would define her approach to leadership. But as she reached her car, her phone buzzed. Carter's name flashed across the screen, and a knot of worry twisted in her stomach. What is it? She wondered, increasingly aware of the challenges that lay ahead. She had taken strides toward her goal, yet the path remained uncertain and rife with challenges. Let's discuss the board's feedback. They had some serious questions. Carter's voice rang out, laced with urgency. The anticipation of what lay next loomed over her. Would her efforts resonate, or was a tumultuous road yet to unfold? Sarah felt her confidence waver. As she turned the key in the ignition, she realized this journey had just begun. The stakes were still rising, and the next confrontation would inevitably challenge not only her resolve, but the very essence of her beliefs. As Sarah sat in the conference room once more, her heart steadied with a resolute calmness. The feedback from the board and Carter's concerns still echoed in her mind, required deep analysis, and she was ready to tackle the challenge head-on. The initial chaos of her emotions was replaced by a grounded determination rooted in clarity. She would show them the vision not just by words, but through actions intertwined with authenticity. Carter entered the room, his expression a mix of interest and concern as he took a seat across from her. Sarah, we need to ensure we're prepared for the next meeting. The board is looking for more than just enthusiasm. They want concrete outcomes, he said, concern threading his voice. She nodded, the dialogue stirring a vitality within her. What if we created a presentation that embeds personal stories with measurable goals? We can present case studies on emotional wellness and our plans for integrating these principles into the clinic's model, Sarah proposed, her confidence surging as she outlined the idea. I like that, Carter said, a spark of admiration in his eyes. But let's also demonstrate how we will track progress. Numbers matter in these discussions. You know that. Absolutely, she replied, excitement coursing through her. The notion of intertwining personal narratives with hard data lit a fire in her. For the first time in months, she felt a clear alignment with Carter, each pulling toward a shared vision, united by purpose. They spent the next week working tirelessly, stitching together their presentation with logical precision and heart. Each story resonated, not just as a reflection of their aspirations, but as a testament to the lives that had already been impacted at the clinic. They transformed Sarah's painful experiences into pivotal pillars, underscoring their initiative's mission, turning struggles into a collective call for change. By the time they entered the boardroom for the presentation, Sarah felt empowered and wholly confident. The board was no longer an intimidating shadow. It was an opportunity for collaboration, and she was more than ready. Good morning, everyone, she started, her voice steady. As she spoke, she could feel the connection pulsing in the room unfolding between them. Relatable, meaningful, yet anchored in the rigor of their plans. Each detail they had steeped themselves in coalesced, revealing layers of potential that resonated beyond the mere transactional nature of health services. It was about something deeper, more profound. As she transitioned through their well-structured slide deck, she watched the board's expressions shift, from skepticism to intrigue. When she wove in personal anecdotes of patients whose lives transformed due to both emotional and physical care, the connection grew tighter. Carter provided compelling statistics on mental health outcomes, amplifying the credibility behind their vision. Each rebuttal of doubt from the previous encounters dissipated like clouds revealing sunlight. By the close of the meeting, the silhouettes of the board members stood transformed, as if the emotional tug had cracked their barriers, allowing them to see the greater picture, one where statistics met heartfelt narratives. Excellent job, Sarah and Carter, the lead board member remarked, a hint of surprise lighting the edges of his serious demeanor. You've clearly articulated a dual focus that addresses both emotional wisdom and practical implementation. We'll provide additional funding to start your pilot program, I think it holds tremendous potential. The air in the room shifted, buoyed by possibilities. Sarah felt a tremor of pride surge within her, not just for the affirmation from the board, but for the realization of how far she had come. As she stepped out into the bright hallway beside Carter, the weight of stress began to lift. "We did it!" she exclaimed, a blend of joy and thrill lighting up her features. "You were brilliant," he replied, his eyes sparkling with new admiration. "You turned everything around. This is just the beginning." Yet, amid her exhilaration, she also understood this might be the most significant transformation of all. She had not only conquered her fears but also carved out a space where her aspirations could thrive, matching the desires of her heart with the need for verifiable change. But Sarah also carried a knowledge that sustained this new position. She would never compromise her authenticity. She learned to navigate the professional landscape with integrity while tapping into her deepest motivations. As they returned to the clinic that evening, the very sight of the building felt renewed, with flickering possibilities lighting up the path ahead. In the weeks that followed, the momentum surged. A network of supporters began to rise around her initiative, eager to champion a cause that connected deeply with their own experiences. Each community meeting revealed stories of resilience, igniting a collective voice advocating for realities that spoke to emotional health as much as to physical wellness. Carter and Sarah flourished as partners, not only in their professional endeavors, but also in their personal lives. With every challenge, they became stronger allies, each learning from the other's strengths. They became a formidable duo in a shared mission to uplift each other, while also lifting the clinic out of the shadows of uncertainty. On the day the clinic officially launched their pilot program, Sarah reflected on her transformation. She stood at the forefront of a movement that reshaped lives, her own notably amongst them. She had conquered her doubts, shaking off the identity of a mere nurse from Lubbock to become a pivotal advocate for change, empowered by her own story. No longer stifled by societal whispers, she was now standing in the clarity of her purpose. She had forged her identity from the trials and triumphs of her journey, bridging heart and ambition into a unified force. "Are you ready for this?" Carter asked, gazing at her with palpable pride in his eyes. "More than ever," she smiled, recognizing the journey ahead would be challenging yet liberating. Each step would continue to refine who she was and who she was capable of becoming. Sarah stood tall, filled with a newfound confidence, and embraced not just the role she'd crafted, but the promise of her own evolution continuing beyond this victory. This was her moment. Now the future awaited, eager for each decision to unfold. Could she impact lives in a way that transcended monetary gain and redefined success? Yes, she knew it wholeheartedly. It was time to soar. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible stories of personal transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. And remember to leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. And don't forget to comment below with your reactions and theories about how Sarah's journey could inspire others.